Member of Ali's men, a member of the War Science Civil America. I want to first rise and give praise to Allah. I want to give honor to His Prophet, Prophet Brutality. I want to give honors to everything that everyone has given honors to since the beginning of this great meeting.
Who knew how to do this?
Thank
Praise Allah. I want to first give gratitude and and thanks to our brother Lasana Tunica Ill for designing that very powerful and effective breakout session regarding Operation Proclamation. I have to say that because when the whole idea of Operation Proclamation came about, through our brother and councilman Khalid Bey, it was a breakfast conversation he and I were having when he first took office. And that conversation gave birth to the idea of Operation Proclamation. And so we put it together, and then, of course, passed it to the rest of our brothers and Ali's men for vetting. And what is so, it's incredible to me, that every member of Ali's men can speak intelligently about Operation Proclamation. It's like, man, you know what I'm saying? And brother, you smashed it. You smashed it. And I have to say this too as well. We have to eat the book as it relates. I'm talking to my brothers and Ali's men and anyone else that wants to take on the part of the work of Operation Proclamation. You have to eat the book. In other words, you have to be able to speak it intelligently, as opposed to putting it detailed on paper and giving it to people. Let me say why. Because I'm telling you this, first of all, we already know Operation Proclamation is nothing but our take on the Prophet's original civic agenda that he ran in 1928.
That's right.
But here's what's so crazy about it. My brother Khalid Bey warned me. It wasn't even it was an admonishment. He said, brother, don't put this on paper and give it to people outside of your immediate circle. He said, because there is no other politician in the country thinking like this.
Wow.
He said, don't give your energy away like that. Don't give your power away like that. You speak it. And in speaking it, you organize your people.
Right.
And they don't even see you coming because they don't expect you to. Right? So that was powerful. So to hear the brother speak with clarity and with power on it from his perspective and from his heart was powerful for me. It really, really was. So I don't really have to talk too much, about it. We're going to be pretty short, but we're going to get right to the topic. I'm going to give a brief overview, and then we're going to go right into it. We want to talk about how Operation Proclamation can be aimed at one of the major issues in our community today, and that is police brutality. How to end police brutality. Again, the brother did such an excellent job on presenting the idea of Operation Proclamation and how it works. I don't have to go too deeply into that. First thing I want to say is that politics trumps the law.
Yes, sir.
Politics trumps the law. Nationality determines political status. It does not determine our status at law.
That's right.
Right? That's after the fact. Right? So that's important. Nationality equals political status. Political status equates to political power. And political power equates or leads to quality of life improvement, which is what we should all be about. The Prophet used the term earthly salvation. That is quality of life improvement. Getting your heaven on earth right now.
Right. That's right.
That's it. That's earthly salvation.
Right.
So, quick overview again. A big part of our history that some people would call black history that's almost never taught is this history right here.
All right.
1865.
Come on.
1865. This was during a time period where the narrative given to us today about our people around this time is that we were what? Uneducated, unlettered, lazy, shiftless. Right? 1865, thousands of our people went to the polls because of the protection of the 14th and 15th Amendment. 14th and 15th Amendment, let's say this really quick. The 14th Amendment did not create a different class of citizen.
All right, brother.
Let's stop that.
Let's go, brother.
Right.
There is no such thing as a 14th Amendment citizen.
Right.
That phrase, 14th Amendment citizen, came from the European Confederate sympathizers. who were still protesting their loss of the Civil War
Right.
and still refused to recognize your right to citizenship and equal participation in American society.
Islam.
So that was a derogatory term talking about our people. Oh, that's a 14th Amendment, sirs.
Wow.
See, the 14th Amendment was in many ways punitive to the southern states that participated in the rebellion.
Right.
It was part of the requirement
Right.
for them to be reabsorbed back into the Union,
Correct.
which is why many of them to this day still protested. They were required to ratify the 14th and 15th Amendment as requisite to joining the Union again.
Correct.
Now, another part of what happened to them during that time period for their participation in the rebellion, remember, Congress doesn't have the power to recognize an independent state coming from itself. So the Union never recognized the Confederacy as an independent state. It doesn't have the power to do so.
Right.
So rather than call it the Civil War in the records, it's called what? The Rebellion against the Union.
Yes.
It's called the rebellion. So because they participated in the rebellion, they were penalized. How? Their voting rights were temporarily suspended. Understand that. This is important.
Islam.
When we talk about the European hostility against our people, this is the beginning of it. Prior to this, it was the flames weren't so hot. Why? Because many of us they saw as a commodity,
Right.
property.
Correct.
But when they lost, understand this is pure. Because how do we measure time?
Cycle
Cycle
age.
ages. We measure time by cycle ages. Keep that in mind when you hear what I'm saying. During that time period, the Southerners lost power. To be brought back into the Union, back into the constitutional fold of power,
Right.
they had to accept some concessions.
Right.
The 14th and 15th Amendment were two of those. And they were forced, those things they were designed to force the European Confederates to recognize your right to equal citizenship and rights and participation in American society. Then to further bolster it, you had federal troops quartered in the southern states to ensure the enforcement of the 14th and 15th Amendments. And their voting rights temporarily suspended. What happened in that vacuum? What Professor Egerton, who wrote the book, right, The Wars of Reconstruction, what he called the first time and the only time civil rights actually worked. This is what he called it. So from 1865 up through 1877, thousands of our people voted. Hundreds of our people took office and held office.
Islam.
To the point where over 60% of the southern state legislatures were us.
Yes. That's right.
Now we talk about the black towns and black cities, but because we're today so politically disenfranchised, we don't understand how that came about. And when you look at Rosewood, the movie Rosewood,
Right.
you don't see a city, you just see houses and some farmland and some, right. You don't see Asiatic policemen, Asiatic politicians,
Right.
Asiatic lawyers, Asiatic doctors. This was a city, people.
That's right.
All right. You don't see those things, but because we're so politically disenfranchised, we don't understand that those things are the result. Those are outgrowths of wielding and holding political power.
That's right.
Because what is politics? Politics is the public relations program that determines government. And what is government? Government is management. What does it manage? It manages the public pot of money that's called a town, city, county, etc. In other words, your money.
Islam.
That is what government is, plain and simple. Government is management, and politics determines who the managers are.
Right.
That's
Right.
why politics can be such a dirty game.
Right.
All right. That's also why politics to this day is very hot. We see it in today's environment. But this is why, because it determines who controls the pot. Like the brother said, government is amoral. It takes on the morality of who sits in the seats.
Correct.
That's right.
All right. So, that's what this is. Now, what happened in 1877? You had the Compromise of 1877. The president at that time was Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson was Confederate. That's right. The European Confederates said, listen, President Jackson, this is what we want. We'll stop protesting this stuff. We'll stop making a fuss if you withdraw the federal troops. President Jackson said, okay. That's called the Compromise of 1877.
Islam.
Federal troops went home, federal government turned its back, and you see the rise.
KKK.
Oh, hold on. Hey, brother man,
Yep.
you see the rise of these guys.
That's right.
Their sole purpose, the sole purpose of the KKK, the red shirts and the white leaves, was the destruction of Asiatic political power in the South and to prevent it from ever rising again. Make no mistake, what we see today as institutionalized racism, the sole purpose or the primary objective is not to kill our people. That is a means. It's a it's a tool. It's an option. It is not the goal.
Islam.
The goal is to prevent you from equal participation in American society. That's the goal. That's the goal. But when you don't understand these things, then you're left with personalizing it.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Oh, they killed us. That's their objective. No.
Right.
No. No. The objective is to keep you a cash cow. To keep you being a Duracell for somebody else's society. That's the objective. So that's what happened in 1877, the Compromise of 1877. And then you had from 1877 up until the present, to a degree, what you could be called, and what some historians actually call, the Second Civil War. Right? Keep on. Yes, sir. Here we go. From the New York Herald. 1898. That was the cover story of the newspaper. See, you hear about Rosewood and Black Wall Street, and you hear about these things as being race riots. No. No. These are battles in what's called by some the Second Civil War. That's a short list, people, of Asiatic cities and towns. Now, remember what I said. What is in a city or a town?
Police, doctors.
Police, doctors, lawyers, politicians, etc. Professionals, right? This is a short list of towns that were systematically and militarily taken over. That's what happened. This is the history. Whites killed Negroes and seized city of Wilmington. By revolutionary methods, white citizens of North Carolina overturned existing city government and at once established their own.
Wow.
That happened.
Wow.
That happened, people.
In the United States.
In the United States.
Yeah.
That's a military coup.
Yes,
That's
sir.
a military coup.
Cool.
How many? Here we go. Lots of them. But here's the kicker. Look at the last one. Rosewood, Florida. What year did it take place?
1923.
Right. You're talking about an era where, like the brother said, you have pictures of brothers being lynched with a sign that said, "This Negro voted." What happened 5 years after 1923, people? We got members of Moore Science you should know.
Islam.
What happened in 1928?
Changed from a civic to a religious organization.
And as a result, that was an election year in Chicago, Illinois, right? That was an election year in Chicago, Illinois. Now, in 1908, Springfield, Illinois, the capital, you had another takeover. Springfield, Illinois was an Asiatic town. Look at that.
Right.
Look at that. 10 years later, you have an Asiatic bloc vote initiative
Yes.
that elected the first of our people to Congress since Reconstruction.
That's right.
Oscar DePriest.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
But here's the wild part about it. How many of our people got lynched?
None.
Islam.
None.
Noble Ali knew something, didn't he?
Yes, sir.
This was the first time that it was done successfully. That's history.
Islam.
That's history. It's undisputed. It was done the first time successfully via Prophet Noble Ali and the Moorish Science Temple of America.
Islam.
That's the power of Operation Proclamation. That's the power of the Prophet's teaching on the civic agenda, on civic engagement. That's the power. I just wanted, because this gives perspective to that, right? So basically, what we have is, with Operation Proclamation, we have methodology Let me use this. Which one do I click, brother, man?
That's it, though. That's it.
You just gotta bring the slideshow back up.
Okay, brother.
Alright, it's right
There you
there.
go.
Make sure it's playing.
Oh, you
Go through, I'm just gonna go through a couple. Here we go. For time, we'll cut through this. Here we go. Nationality determines political status. We already talked about this. The sovereign people, the body of constituents in a society that collectively exercises sovereign power via its elective representatives through the political process. Right? Organization in urban centers based on commonalities, common social issues. Mobilization, and then politicize. Organize, mobilize, politicize. That is the basic or primary methodology of Operation Proclamation. Right? Organizing according to what? According to national identity, divine creed, cultural heritage, and common American experience.
Islam.
Meaning my problems are the same as your problems regardless to where we live.
That's right.
It just makes sense for us to come together.
That's right. That's right.
That's right.
Right? Okay, that's one. Two, also two in terms of vote blocks, what are the most powerful and the most common ways to organize a vote block? Based on national identity.
That's right.
Like the Irish vote block. Whether you straight, LGBT, Protestant, Catholic, whatever, you vote Irish. Makes sense to me.
Islam.
All right. Second thing, mobilize. You mobilize how? Pooling resources and practicing community economics. Keep the money to yourself. Make yourselves rich. Understand how to make money as opposed to just exchanging time for a dollar.
That's right.
There's a difference.
That's right, man.
Because that's what intelligent communities do.
Islam.
That's also why these very same intelligent communities in America feed off our lifeblood economically and call us liquid money. Third thing is politicize. You develop an agenda to address key issues, your key issues. But the cool thing about your key issues is that some of your issues are other people's issues too.
True.
Right.
On the nationality card, the genius on it, we honor all divine prophets, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius. We know from history that in the Moorish science symbol of America, there were Arabian members.
Yes,
there were
sir.
Japanese and Chinese
Yes.
members. Why?
Yes.
Because for among other things, some of their issues
That's
they
right.
shared with us.
That's right.
So when it came time to hit the polls,
Ooh.
we could count their number with us.
That's right.
Make sense?
Makes sense.
Simple. So, you develop an agenda to address your key issues, right? That agenda is backed by political power. In other words, your voting power that you already have with a mobilized collective, right? And then thirdly, you wield that power to influence a politician or influence lawmaker to do what? Change policy. That's it. To do what? Change policy. What is policy? Laws, policy, right? Nationality determines political status. In other words, ideally, it puts you at the table to shape the laws. You become a participant in shaping society. That is what is meant by take your place in the affairs of men, as opposed to sitting back and watching everybody shape reality around you,
Right.
and then complaining about it afterwards.
Right.
Right?
That's right.
So, what's the key issue here? Let me get right to it now. The key issue is police brutality. The key issue here is police brutality. I don't know if the sound will play. It probably will, but I don't know how loud it will be.
Let's give it a try.
Let's give it a try.
Find something. You might not see nothing. It's perfect principle. You might not see anything, but you go hunting, like bounty hunting for an arrest. Not like some old guy, some homeless guy, finding somebody riding a bicycle on the sidewalk, who's spitting, and you bring him in. The problem is when you go hunting, when you put any type of numbers on a police officer to perform, we are gonna go to the most vulnerable. The most vulnerable, of course. We're gonna go to the LGBT community. We're gonna go to the black community. We're gonna go to those people that have no vote, that have no power.
Wow.
If we start doing what we do in the midtown Manhattan, a phone call to
Joy, hear that?
Yeah.
The past 2 years, in an effort to remove alleged quotas and
I'll just let it play. I'll just let it play. Praise the Lord.
don't rack up numbers. Ravens claims elicited this expletive from the police commissioner. Here's my response to that. The commissioner insists his policies are focused on the quality of arrests and summonses, not the quantity. The officer's attorney. Is the commissioner lying? Yes. Commissioner Brown is lying. But how can you prove this? I can prove it with testimony, recordings, documents. Only want to students go out there and mop them up. They told us it's easy to get numbers on it because you're working this type of thing. Are you arresting for stuff that you shouldn't be arresting for? Well, that's why we're here. We don't do it. We refuse. And because of that, we are retaliated against. Because you're not harassing people, you're being punished. You know, and it doesn't make for a great work environment. Because they want you to harass people. The lawsuit claims minority officers are punished more severely than white cops for failing to meet quotas. The city denies it. And the community are suffering the most. Because depression, because the quota. Because the police department is like a whore pretending to be a lady. That's what they are. Are you worried? You know, this is a big step to come forward like this. It's not easy. It's not easy. We're the enemies. We're the people that nobody talks to. The culture of the department, we're the rats. That's how they call us. We're the rats that speak out. It takes a lot of guts from a rat to stand where we stand.
Absolutely.
Knowing that our career are basically over the second we speak against such a mafia. Because the police department is a mafia. It's a big organized mafia.
Okay.
All right.
Did you hear the part where he said, who do you target? He said,
Yeah.
you target the people with no power, the people who don't
Vote.
That's right.
they have no power. He said, if we were to do this downtown Manhattan, our captain would get a phone call and that would be the end of it. In other words, the captain would jump on them and it'd be over. You understand?
That's right. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, let's get right to it. Police brutality, right? We got to address the source. We already know this is a climate now where this is a big deal, right?
Right.
So many people are talking about the police brutality issue. Almost no one is actually addressing the source of the problem, right? Almost no one is. This is recent. This was in August. Leaked Soros memo. Who knows who George Soros is? All right. Leaked Soros memo reveals potential plan to use Black Lives Matter to federalize U.S. police.
Wow.
Now, in general, what this article is talking about is Soros and people who he's backing, an organization he's backing, using the tragic upswing of police brutality and deaths at the hands of police to fuel police policy reform. In other words, addressing the issue at its source. I had, follow me real quick. Some of you have heard me say this before. I'll say it again. I'll say it for the benefit of the camera. I have a friend of mine, a European friend of mine, right? And this particular European friend still has that thing of, you know what, we're friends, but I'm European, so I'm smarter than you. So he's like, well, answer me this, Sharif. I said, go ahead. He goes, how is it with this Black Lives Matter thing? How is it that you all can be upset when white police officers kill black people, but when black people kill black people, you have nothing to say? Explain that. When do black lives really matter? Whoa, pretty interesting, right? I said, well, sir, the problem is actually in your questioning. There's a flaw in your understanding of the issue.
Right.
So he didn't like being called dumb, basically. He said, well, what do you mean? What part of it do I not understand? I said, the issue is not. I said, here it is. The issue is not our people killing each other as opposed to cops killing us. That's not the issue. The issue is policy that shapes institutions that protect officers in killing you.
That's right. That's right.
Our people, because of our political disenfranchisement and ignorance and apathy, don't have a institution that protects us in killing other people or each other.
Islam.
Right.
That's right.
Think about that.
Islam.
He says, well, what do you mean? I said, oh, very simple, bro. I explained it. I said, I explained it with my own personal experience. I started years back a private security company. You know, CPAs, close protection agents, bodyguards. So a good friend of mine who's a world-renowned security specialist said, Brother Sharif, what you're going to need, because you got civilian guys, they're going to put hands on someone. Somebody's going to get slick or shrewd and either press charges or sue, which means your guys are going to end up in court. You're going to need a professional witness. I said, come on, man, I ain't got no money. He said, no, follow me. Here's your professional witness. When you put together, and you must put together a training manual. When you put together your training manual, you have right next to it New York State laws on use of force continuum. You write your training manual procedures in full conformity to New York State laws on use of force. So, as it relates to civilians. So now if your agents are out there and in the course of their, heard these words? In the course of performing their duties. Heard those words before? In the course of performing their duties, if in the process of doing that someone is hurt, injured, maimed, or killed, if they follow the procedures outlined in your training manual, it's called justifiable homicide. It's legal. Come on in. It's legal. It's legal. Do you understand what I just explained?
Yes.
He looked at me like, he said, that's pretty astute. That was code for, you're not supposed to be that smart. Because we depend upon, or we rely on the fact that you all are so divorced from understanding how this thing works and the root of the problem. Right? So, here we go, people. And then we'll take a few questions. What am I on time? Where am I on time?
So wait a minute.
Praise the Lord.
I'll signal you.
Okay, praise the Lord, praise the Lord, praise the Lord. So, the key issue here, people, is policy. It always is. It's policy. It's not, we used to, in another school of thought, we used to ask the question, what makes rain, hail, snow, and earthquakes? Some of you all know what that's all about. And there's a big, long answer to that. But the key, the moral of the answer is this. Everybody pays attention to the effect. Everybody pays attention when the rain comes down and the snow comes down. How many of you are paying attention when the sun is out that the water is actually going up?
That's right.
People don't pay attention to cause. They mostly pay attention to effect. Right? So when we see the officer shoot down the brother in the street, is that cause or effect? Most of us think it's cause. And therefore we define it based on our misunderstanding. We think that's racism. That ain't racism. Racism, and I know it goes on in Baltimore because it goes on in Syracuse, but Syracuse is #1 in the country for concentrated poverty amongst Asiatics, what people call black and Latinos. #1 in the country. Over 62% of our people in Syracuse, New York, are living in third world conditions. That's called racism. That's racism. Because if you could say that, then you have to presume something. What? Economic segregation. And that's not accidental.
That's right.
You see my point? We think we know what racism is. We think we know what this thing is about. We see a brother or sister get shot down in the street, we call that racism. No. No. That was a tweaking to maintain the status quo.
That's right.
That was an adjustment.
Yes.
That's just real. So, the real issue is policy. You change policy, you change the environment. It's like a glitch in the matrix. You change one thing, all of a sudden you thought it was a door there and it's a brick wall. But nobody told us we could do it too. And that's the old history from 1865 to 1877 that nobody talks about. Understand?
Sir.
That's it. Again, policy forms and maintains institutions. Institutions determine social environment and social fabric. If you're not participating at the cause, you are suffering from the effect.
So true.
It's just that simple, people. You reshape policy, you reshape social environment. That is why nationality determines political status,
Islam.
not status at law.
That's
Political
right.
status puts you at the head,
Islam.
not at the tail.
That's right.
It makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Political status is determined by nationality. The nationality determines political status. In other words, it puts you in a position to shape the laws. That's why Act 4 says, of our divine constitution and bylaws, says, all members must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all members must obey the laws of the government.
That's right.
Because by being a Moorish American, you're a part and parcel of the government and must live the life accordingly. In other words, we're compelled to obey the laws because if we're participating, we help shape them.
That's
That's
right.
right,
That's right.
It's that simple.
That's right.
If you ain't participating, then you're on the menu. And yeah, of course, all you're going to do is complain.
Right.
Makes sense to me. Right?
That's right.
Police brutality, let's talk about it. How does this relate? And then we're pretty much done.
Yes, sir.
Police agencies, are they government agencies or are they private entities?
Private entity.
Private
Thank
entity.
you. People don't get it.
Private entity.
They're private entities. What's the government? Your common council. How many on your common council are security specialists? How many of them know about sanitation? How many of them know about plumbing? How many of them know about public works? They don't. So what do? They contract out to private guilds.
Right.
That's right. To perform that service.
Those are called what? Auxiliaries. Sound familiar?
Yes, sir.
Right.
All right. That's what they're called. They're called auxiliaries. So those agencies work on behalf of
The government.
to provide service. There you go. To provide services that government is compelled by design to provide to its citizens.
That's right.
Why? Because you've already paid for them.
That's right.
You prepaid for the services.
Right.
That's why you see these Europeans going crazy in common council meetings. See the little old Italian lady can barely walk, ready to knock everybody's block off because she got a pothole in front of her house because she understands that every time this dollar's paid for it 10 times over already.
That's right. That's right.
She wants a return on her investment.
That's right.
Islam.
Right.
She gets it. We got skin in the game and we act like we don't, and so nobody respects us because of it. We pay more taxes. We already know how the taxing works. The poor pay the most.
That's right.
That's right.
You got skin in the game. You better get a return on your investment and stop leaving your money on the counter.
Islam.
That's what happens now. Police brutality. That's a private agency. It means it has to have what? If it's a private agency contracting with the state government, there must be a contract.
Islam.
There must be a contract with the state, right?
And the contract say you lock up so many people because you need that income for housing.
Now, right, but guess what? What if the contract violates laws?
Absolutely.
But whose duty is it to be the watchdog over those issues?
House.
The citizens.
That's right.
Especially those adversely affected by the conditions.
That's right.
If government is complaint driven, people, let me say it again. Government is complaint driven.
That's
Make no complaint. The presumption is that you are cool with it.
That's why you
That
have
you are
redress.
okay with it. That's right,
That's why
brother.
you got redress.
Yes, sir. That's why you have redress.
Islam.
But see, we want to be, how did the prophet say? The Moors are what?
Active.
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 Not passive.
Not passive.
Let me pass this out.
And an exclamation point on that, he's not just looking for an average citizen, he's looking for a better citizen.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, brother. That's right.
Anybody can be average.
We're just about done here, people. What you're about to receive is an initiative that went all the way to President Barack Obama.
3 pages.
3 pages. It went to every government office or political office at the federal and state level and local level in the state of New York. What you do is you address and challenge the contract. But to do that, you need political power. You need a significant amount of voters that are adversely affected by the issues. And you aim them at challenging the contract. Do you understand why the police benevolent associations in many cases are stronger than police chiefs? Because they're the lawyers that protect the contract.
That's right.
That's why. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, when you do what we're talking about doing, don't think you ain't in for a fight.
That's right, Mark.
Let me just say that again. You hear people, especially in the conscious community, talk about, oh, yo, I got my phone is tapped and I got to watch what I say. Move down this road.
Right.
You're going to see it for real.
Right.
Because there's too much at stake.
That's right.
All right? I'll read. To whom it may concern, I write this letter today to petition for a governmental redress of grievance as it pertains to our nation's men and women in blue. While the majority of police officers throughout our country do exemplary work, there are or have been a few who have tarnished the reputation of police officers in general. This message is an effort to first assure protections of our citizens and second, to restore and safeguard the integrity of our various law enforcement officers who provide great services for the benefit of our citizens. Over the past few years, certain behaviors previously expressed in the dark and often perpetrated by law enforcement officers who swore to protect the citizens of the United States, behaviors that at times resulted in the severe injury or death to the very citizens that our law enforcement officers swore to protect, have come and continues to come to light. Police officers have killed 102 unarmed African Americans in 2015 in America. Nearly 1 in 3 African Americans killed by police in 2015 were unarmed. Unarmed African Americans were killed at a rate at 5 times the rate of unarmed whites in 2015. The actions of some of the nation's law enforcement officers raises concerns about the constitutionality of said actions as discussed therein. For example, under the 4th Amendment, citizens are protected against the arbitrary arrest and or seizure of his or her person by law enforcement officers. However, the 4th Amendment is continually violated by law enforcement officers due to racial profiling policies, stop and frisk, or for the purposes of this discussion, stop and kill policies. The fundamental liberty of locomotion guaranteed to every citizen by the 9th Amendment is often violated every time a citizen while traveling from point A to point B is arrested or stopped without warrant or for arbitrary cause. Movement qualifies the existence of life. Hence, the absence of movement can often suggest the absence of life. Unfortunately, there have been too many cases where a citizen has been arrested permanently or killed, arguably in violation of both the 4th and 9th Amendments, as was the case with Terrence Crutcher in Tulsa, Oklahoma. There is no law within the United States Constitution that allows for the permanent arrest or death of U.S. citizens without legal due process. There's more to this, but let's see. Does everybody see the top of the page where this comes from? City of Syracuse Common Council, Khalid Bey, Counselor, 4th District. This is an Operation Proclamation operation.
Demonstrate.
That's what this is. We don't want to, just as the brother said, we don't want to just pontificate. We want to demonstrate, and as the Prophet Noble Drew Ali said, or is reported to have said, if I say I'm going to do a thing,
It's already done.
this is already in motion. All we have to do is now jump on board. That's all we have to do. Brother Fuqua Bey already asked for a copy of the letter and said we need to make this nationwide because more sites in America.
That's right.
So this is already in motion. It's the ethers have already been stirred on this matter. The idea, in other words, what George Soros and these guys are trying to do is, once again, like what happened in the civil rights movement and other movements, off our blood, off our labor. Somebody else is using that fuel and that energy and guiding it. No, we're taking back the narrative. We want to take back the narrative. We're intelligent enough to know the issues and be able to address them.
That's right.
That's right.
We are.
That's right.
You challenge the paper because it's the paper that determines the policy that determines the actions and the job description of the officers. And it can change overnight.
That's right.
We're not talking about years. I use the analogy, and pardon the analogy, it's a little hood. I don't gotta shoot you to rob you. All I gotta do is let you know I got it. We don't gotta wait till election year. All people have to know is that you have sufficient voting power to get them out of here.
That's right. Absolutely.
We don't gotta wait for the election year. That's it.
Islam.
Peace.
Yeah.
Peace.
Praise Allah. Good teaching.
Praise the Lord, more. It's been quite a day.
Yes, sir.
Islam?
Islam.
Islam. Brother, the brethren of Ali's men would definitely like to express our gratitude for your participation in our Moorish Brotherhood Summit. That was inclusive of our sisters for the first time. And we like the feel of this.
Yes.
That may be the template, the modus operandi going forward. And hopefully you've all been filled, you've been informed, you've been inspired, as I have. And we look forward to many more. That being said, we've overrun our time here. And Brother Nazir Ali Ill was on the program to provide the closing prayer. But we will ask our brother T. Hopkins Bey to perform that particular aspect of our program. Islam.
And before you all,
yes, sir.
After the prayer, don't leave yet. If you have not signed in or paid the $25 for registration, come see me, please. Praise the Lord. Amen, man.
And yes, of course, we have again available Brother A. Hopkins Bey's book, which was a partnership between our brother A. Hopkins Bey and Ali's Men Publishing. Prophet Noble Drew Ali, Savior of Humanity. This is one of the greatest books that were published on our prophet. Within this book, you will get a sense of the pace that the prophet built this movement. You will see, and embedded within the pages are primary documents that supports the narrative of the history that he's telling. And you will really get a feel of how fast and the work ethic that the prophet demonstrated in laying the foundation of the Moorish Science Temple of America. We also have the audio book for this set, performed by myself.
Come on, brother.
Audio book of the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America.
That's right.
We also have available, we have t-shirts available, Ali's Men t-shirts. Islam. And the back saying what?
Unity at all costs.
Unity at all costs. And last but not least, we have the white lapel pins, Ali's Men logo, and we have those available as well. Please support your brethren and Brother T. Hopkins.
Islam.
Islam.
Rise and face the east. All those who wish to pray with us, please raise 5 fingers on your left hand, 2 fingers on your right, heels together, toes spread at a 45-degree angle. All those who wish not to pray with us, please remain in silent benediction while we recite the Moorish American prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
The Father of love.
Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
And
my salvation. By night. And by day. Through his holy prophet. Drew Ali. Amen.
Takbir! Takbir!
I'm trying to catch brother two together in the parking lot.
Islam. All right, brother. Islam.
In the back, brother.
A lot of comments from you on the web. Yes, sir.
Pleasure.
Well said.
I don't know. This brother Hard Thomas.
It's all.
brother.
Boy, I think I'm caught up.
A defensive treaty on the Holy Prophet Brutality, the Moorish Science Temple of America, defeating the prophet, the finality argument, showing that Muhammad himself received a revelation and he was not the last prophet. And I even show how the Moorish Holy Quran is united with the Holy Quran.
How much is going to
money. Now, Mo, I'm getting ready to pay my obligation.
All right, thank you, brother.
I don't, I'm a cheap, Mo. First, let me pay.
How many copies you got of that book, bro?
I got enough for us to take care of y'all, brother. I got 30 with me. And then parking lot. First of all, what I owe you, Mo, for?
25.
Okay, first of all.
But y'all, you came in late, didn't you?
Yes, I did, but that's not the point.
No, this is all you gotta give me.
Okay, all right. Now, what is the pen, Mo? I need to join and become an Ali's man. Because I am. I've been one for a while. I just, son, Mo, thank you, Mo. I love you too.
I'm serious. I'm serious.
Let me see where the pens are.
You let me see the t-shirt bag?
He may have gone to get the pens. How much are the
I have
pens?
2 t-shirts.
You got 2 t-shirts?
And I'm waiting for him to come in. The pens is $10.
Can you unhand me? Because I got a spot for it. I already got it in my heart. It's already crossed my heart. I just need it around outside.
I think he said he left him in the room.
Oh, he went.
Yeah, he went to go get
Okay, that's not a problem.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mo, I was just telling the brother. This is the defense of the Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the Moor Science Temple of America, a refutation of the argument that finality has come to prophet. It shows how the Moorish Holy Quran is united with the Holy Quran of Mecca. And it shows that Muhammad himself received the revelation specifically from Allah, informing him that he was not the last and final prophet.
Wow, okay, beautiful.
That's what that does.
Praise the Lord.
Right.
You selling it too, brother.
No. No, we don't need to make an ebook. Just graphic.
Are you having one too? Is that like going close towards?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
right.
Let's get a picture of all the sisters together.
Turban, it's turban.
Taking pictures.
Make me look urban, huh? All right. Hold on.
I know, real good life.
What are we doing?
Take my one's class,
No, man. We're about to work.
Said it like you already.
So whatever you do, just find us no problem. Sell away. You work out all these stars. That's what Ali's been to prosper.
Yes, sir.
We gotta get out of here.
Rochester, where we supposed to came, got me. Hey,